Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not? Why not make me go insane? Yeah, sure. Anyways, hi, I'm Deconverted Man. Answers in Atheism talk to Ryan, who is Save Me Apologetics on YouTube. Modern worship music to praise God. Uh, well, I guess he's got some music, but he also has some apologetics on his channel, and he's a creationist. But good old speed of sound answers in the atheism. Good old, you know, bald Santa, as I like to call him. I've never called him that before, but I think it's fitting. He's like a, he's a friendly guy. I like him. He's a good guy. Anyways, what am I saying? Right. Oh, yeah. So Ryan was on, and Mike was trying to explain, evolution to him and stuff. And he kept like, well, the transitional things, where are those? And I'm like yelling, flying fish in chat. But, he didn't see me yelling. And so I wound up eating my keyboard, my screen, my computer, and my desk in chat. Now, that was just in the chat world. So in the real world, I didn't eat any of those things. But in chat world, I don't have any desk or computer anymore. Anyways, so I'm not sure how I'm going to type in chat world. That doesn't matter. So yeah, creationists seem to not, well, they don't, it's not just they don't understand evolution. And they get mixed up on terminology and all that. I understand, because like, it's a complicated subject to some degree. Macro and micro, what's the difference there? And it's like, look, if you have macro evolution, you have both. It is both. It's like, well, where's the thing in between? Why don't we see that thing? We do. Everything that you look at is a transitional form. There is, and he said something like, why are we at the final version of everything? We're not. There is no end goal for evolution. We are not at the end of it. There is no end to it. You evolution keeps going until there is no more species to evolve. Unless the species goes extinct, it keeps going. So there is no goal. There's no end to it. Had we been born, tens of thousands of years ago, we might have been cavemen, or we might have been, Neanderthals or whatever. And the Neanderthals were beaten out by the Homo sapiens. Although we still have some Neanderthal DNA in us, so they're kind of still around, but not as much as they were at one point. We wiped them out. We beat them. We overcame them, even though they were stronger than the Homo sapiens. And we only call them Homo sapiens because that's the name that we picked, So here we are, as we are, and he's like, well, I want to see the thing go from one thing to the other thing. It's like, that's not how that works. It's not how evolution works. You're never going to see something turn into something else, because that's not what things do. So anyways, I drew up a lovely mspaint thing to kind of maybe explain. I'm not great with science, but I thought, here's my explanation for Ryan, sort of. So he went bald, right? This is Ryan here, and he clearly he went bald at some point. Maybe he shaves his head. I'm assuming he went bald. Okay. And then he's got his wife over here, who I don't know what his wife looks like, or even if he has one, or girlfriend, or whatever. And I just gave him hair, and I'm pretending that's a girl. So that, because I anyways, doesn't matter. They have a kid, right? And the kid will go bald because he inherited genes of baldness from his dad, and their dominant genes, yada yada yada, whatever. Now, in time, this kid will grow up 18 years or so. Now he's an adult and he's bald. And he prefers balding women, which there are fewer of, but they do exist. And so they get married and they have a kid, and that kid is definitely going to be bald. Now, meanwhile, over here, we have every other human in the human race represented by all these stick figures over here, right? And these people are having kids. Some of them are bald, some of them are not bald, and that's happening. But there's a pressure to be with bald people, and it's way more. And this pressure to have sex with bald people, for whatever reason, lasts for like a really, really long time, right? And so after a whole lot of time, everyone will be bald at some point. Every single human will go bald or even maybe start bald just to save time. And and so 18 years, that's for your one kid to have another kid, and then it's another 18 years at least for them to have a kid, and so on and so forth. And for the rest of the species all to have enough bald people to where baldness is common throughout human population is going to be an insane amount of time. It's not going to be infinite time, but it's going to be a lot of time. Okay. And so he wants to see that now. And it's like, yeah, but that's you don't get to do that. You don't get to see that now. You have to wait. Uh and so the frustration, which I understand, is, but if I can't see this going on, then how do I know that it's going on? And the methods that science uses to show that this is happening are 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 methods that I couldn't teach. The evidence is out there. It's overwhelming for this stuff. And so, we've got the fish, and he's like, well, where's the intermediate? I'm like, we've got an intermediate. It's a flying fish. So we've already got a fish that has wings. Now, if that if if that fish that has wings uh uses less and less of its fishness over time, species wise, because it's not. That's the other thing he kind of got wrong, is thinking that it's like an individual. It's not. It's a whole population. You need a lot of flying fish. You need like a bazillion. I don't know how many flying fish, like a million flying fish plus something. Okay. If as a species they all start eating all bugs in the air, and they spend less time in the water, and as time goes on, their need to be to swim goes down, and their need to fly goes up, and pressures, maybe water lowers because of global warming. The heat is killing off the water. Now some of the fish are going to die. They're not going to be too happy about that. And meanwhile, some of the flying fish, because they can fly, they don't need as much water to live anymore. But as they keep going and having babies that can fly, they fly longer, fly faster, they fly further, and all of this helps them to outcompete the fish that aren't flying, and or also outcompete other flying fish. Then eventually the things that they use to be a fish will diminish over time. But it's such a small increment over time that you're not going to see it on a human scale, a human time scale. You're going to start with the fish that has the wings, and then you're going to have that fish is going to have a kid or several kids, and also there's a bazillion other fishes that are also doing this at the same time, you know and that kid, maybe its wing is a little teeny bit longer, like by an inch, right? But mean, and there's gonna be other fish that have slightly longer wings as well, right? Because again, it's the entire species that's happening to. Now, maybe it's a maybe it's 100. Well, let's say it's a 500,000 out of the million fish that have slightly larger wings, and that slightly larger wing lets them mate with each other, lets them outcompete the other ones, and so they have more kids and have more fish, and some of them are going to have larger wings or the same wing size or whatever. And as that process keeps happening, slow changes over time will accumulate to where the wing gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But we could be here right now. We could be seeing the fish that's right, or the whatever you want to call it, because it's not. We label them, by what they are now. I guess that's the fish, but whatever. The flying fish, we see this one right now. We're like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Where's the middle fish though? Where's the fish that is transitioning to the bird? And it's like, it's right there. That's the fish that's going to become the bird. It's going to take a long time for it to be a bird, and it's not going to look like a bird that we know today. It's going to look like some other thing. I don't know what it's going to look like, but it's going to be, a weird looking bird at first, and maybe over time, it's going to look more like a bird that we would recognize. Maybe not. I don't know. But and then when we're there, we'd be like, well, where's the, whoever's down this end of the timeline? It's gonna be like, well, why does it look, that's a bird. It don't look like a fish no more. When did it look like a fish? Oh, it looked like a fish like a bazillion years ago. Okay. And so that's kind of the thing. Yeah, the conversation with me. So yeah, I was yelling. I'm like, flying fish are the intermediate thing. We are. Everything is an intermediate thing. Everything that is alive is an intermediate thing. Now, as far as the horseshoe crab, um, yeah, the pressures on that are it has found a thing that works, and but even the horseshoe crab has evolved. It's just its changes are really small, really small. And so if you look at a horseshoe crab today versus one that's tens of thousands of years old, and of course it has to be fossilized so that you can find it. That's one problem. But at any rate, there's going to be subtle differences. Not maybe a couple major ones, but mostly subtle differences, because it found its niche. And a lot of species seem to be, quote, becoming crabs, end quote. And it's like, well, why is that happening? It's like, well, because crab is like a really good thing to be, and it's a simple thing for things to be. But they're not all called crab. They're called different things. And we are still apes. We are categorized as an ape, or possibly monkey. Yeah, I don't know. This is a little bit of quibble about that. But yeah, I don't know enough about evolution beyond that to really explain it better than I just did, I don't think. But this is very typical with the creationists, is that they just don't know, and then they don't know what they don't know, and then there's this intertwining of faith of God and a certain way that you have to look at the Bible. I have to view Genesis in this way, or else it doesn't matter anymore. That they're not really Christian because they're not using the Bible in the way that I'm using the Bible. And of course, I have it right. And here's how I view that. If you think that you're in a relationship with God, and you might be for all I know, isn't it the case that we can learn something new about a person that we're in a relationship with? Like Michael Bell here, he's like, yeah, that conversation with me, so, Like, I don't know this guy that well, and I get to know him, and suddenly we learn, oh, he likes salsa on his ice cream. Never knew that before. He probably doesn't. I don't know. Maybe he does. He's never tried it. So who knows? Maybe he will try that because I mentioned it and be like, oh, I do like it. What do you know? And it's like, he found out something new about it. So tell me, I didn't know that about you. What an interesting new discovery, right? So could it be with God that you have a book, fine, that you believe that God dictated to humans or inspired or something like that? I don't think anyone hopefully believes that God actually wrote the book, but maybe somebody does. I don't know. But nonetheless, could it be that your understanding of what God is not completely correct? There's still a God, but you just didn't know this about God. And so that reshapes your understanding of God, and thus you're actually getting to know God better by discovering how God really works. And the early Christians, and early as far as science goes, they started doing science because they wanted to find out how God did things. They wanted to celebrate God's work in discovering and understanding the natural world. And some of them found, yeah, hey, evolution's a thing. And yes, there was people that debated Darwin in his day and all that, and they were the fundamentalists. And the fundamentalists came at it not from a scientific view, but from a religious view by intertwining faith with a certain view of reality and saying, no, you have to see it this way. And if you don't see it that way, then our God doesn't exist, etc., etc., etc. And so therefore you're not really a Christian, and all the other Christians are just getting it wrong. And the Catholic Church was like, nah, you can, there was plenty of Christians and Catholics at the time that saw Genesis as non-literal already, but they were like scholarly people, and nobody cares what you smart nerd, who cares what you think? The average Joe Schmo, you know, uh, either accepted, the science or didn't, and that's what we kind of have today. Except we have, we have people deliberately sending and spreading pseudoscience in the name of their religion and saying, no, evolution is false. Well, no, evolution is absolutely true. And if there's a God, it used evolution. So if you want to say evolution is false and your God exists, well, your God doesn't exist anymore. So if you tie the existence of your God with something that's false, then you've negated your God. So rather than just assume or believe that it's not true, we'll investigate it, learn. And it's going to take learning. You're going to have to learn some biology. You're going to have to learn. You're going to have to read some books that are not creationist stuff online. Don't, the videos online. No, get an actual book and sit down and read it. Take notes. Maybe go to a class. But you get away from the people that are going to confirm your ideas. Go to and see why it's really true and what evidence is really there. And it's ample evidence, supported by thousands upon thousands of scientists, many of whom are believers, as if that matters. But yes, they are believers, and many of whom are Christians and or Catholics or whatever. Not that that should matter, but yeah, and disciplines of different faiths and different backgrounds of different politics. So all these people support under and agree with biological evolution, with a few nitwits who suck at science saying no to it because they suck at science. So look, if you haven't studied the material yourself, there's zero chance that you're going to know what anyone is talking about. And I hear the guys that know this stuff, and they're like, well, do you know about the chromosomic flangel of the mitochondrial X factor? And I'm like, what the no? What are you talking about? And then the creationists was like, they have no idea. There, I'm like, yeah, They won. The other guy won. They knew what they're talking about. This guy doesn't. Now, some of the more professional, quote unquote, professional creationists do know the terms, do know the fancy terms, and they can lie their way through it. And it is lying because they have a set goal in mind. And the set goal is to somehow disprove evolution, even though there's no way to do that, and instead say, well, God did it all. And they're really, really, really upset with humans being apes. They don't want that. And they'll say stupid things like, oh, we've never seen an ape change into a man. Yeah, that because it's not, that's it. It is an ape, and then it's still an ape, and then it's still an ape, and it slowly is losing fur over time. And you keep going, and eventually it's a thing that you would call a man, but at no point did it stop being an ape. We're still an ape. So, yeah, we never changed to something else. And birds are still dinosaurs and all these things. But it takes education to understand that. I asked this guy a while back, are you going to learn informal logic? Do you have plans to learn informal or formal logic? And he refused to answer. And I'm like, this guy is dishonest. He's intellectually bankrupt and dishonest because he's not answering if he's even planning to learn it. And I'm like, if you don't know how this thing functions, how do you plan to make an argument utilizing logic when you don't know how logic works? And there's this thing called the Dunning-Kruger effect, where if you know a very little bit of stuff, you can actually trick your own brain into thinking that you know a lot of it. And you got to be careful about that. You got to be aware, and you got to be willing to question what you hold most dear. Now, the question of God is and should be separate from any scientific inquiry. And it's just a matter of changing your perspective about how God works. If you want to keep believing in God or need to or whatever, I don't know, fine. But however reality works, that's how God did it. Anyways, all right, so that's me complaining about some of the stuff that happened on the during their conversation. I'm yelling, flying fish, and look at the platypus. What the bleep is the platypus? That thing's the middle of something. It can't decide what the bleep is gonna be. If you want an example of something in the middle of evolution or whatever, I would think that would be an example. Anyway, so there's the stuff. Let's see what to respond to. Oh my god, that's like almost 30 minutes long. That's too long. That one's 15. Do atheists condone assault, abuse, and slavery? No, I don't. I don't know about it. You're in religion, don't even know it. Oh man. And then these are songs, I guess. Is God shy? That's another long one. Do you have anything short that's not a short? Or do I have to, like, oh, I got a book from Cat Hobbit. That'll be great for a paperweight. And then more songs. Okay. SMA Thought Experiment 1. Injustice. Why is God unfair? That one's only 12 minutes. That'll only take me an hour to cover. Okay, I don't like looking at shorts as a rule, but yeah, there was a couple that I watched or saw and wanted to comment on. I saw the text on this one, and I don't think you guys, girls and robots, can see. I think now you should be able to. So it says God is giving you the chance to use your free. God is using my mouth to not work up. Let me try that again. Oh my goodness. Just edit that out later. God is giving you the chance to use your free will to choose the right thing freely. And the comment I left, without watching the video, by the way, so maybe my comment's completely irrelevant to the video, is if I hold a gun to someone, they really do not have a true choice in the matter. That's an ad baculum. Uh, and given that, since the choice is one where if I do not pick what God wants, I'm given an ad baculum, which is hell. So how is that a true choice? But maybe he's not talking about choosing God here. I don't know. So we'll see what he's actually talking about, and then I'll talk about it.
I really like this. C.S. Lewis said this.
C.S. Lewis.
Another possible objection is this. Why is God landing in this enemy-occupied world in disguise and starting a sort of secret society to undermine the devil? Why is he not landing in force, invading it? Is he not strong enough? Well, Christians think he is going to land in force. We do not know when, but we can guess why he is delaying. He wants to give us the chance of joining his side freely.
Okay, could everyone hear that decently enough, or do I need to crank up the volume? Um, okay, so C.S. Lewis is saying, well, why did God land in this like secret way to in this enemy force? Why not come in full force and take out the devil immediately? Why wait? And oh well, he's giving us the time to make a free choice. So choose God or the devil is the choice. And C.S. Lewis, I liked his Narnia books. That's about real. And there was a movie based on C.S. Lewis's life. Very difficult to watch. I forget what it was called now, but he married this gal that was like about to die, basically, and he loved her until she died, and then kept loving her after that, I guess. But it was like really hard life that he had, broadly speaking. And he made some weird choices. I don't know, but it was cool. I like that. But other than that, don't really care about C.S. Lewis. Okay, so um, so why doesn't God, like Adam and Eve sin? Why doesn't God just send Jesus right then and there to pay for their sins? Why wait? Right? There's no answer to that. There isn't one. Well, you can make one, but that's now you've made a fan fiction based on, well, mythology, but if based on the story so far, your idea is not going to be anything but pure speculation at best, and fan fiction, well, not at worst, but whatever. So there is no way to say, well, why didn't God do it X, Y, or Z way? Well, that's not how the story was written. If you wrote the story that way, it wouldn't be a story, because you have to fit the story in reality to some extent so that people can believe it. If it's too far out, if it's too wild, people won't believe it. But the idea that God was hanging around with a couple of us, and then we screwed up, and then God got upset at us, and we kept on screwing up, and God just kept getting more frustrated and trying to get us, trying to find the perfect person, trying to find the righteous person, and we just keep screwing up and keep letting God down. And God's just so sad. He's such a disappointed parent in us, And it's our fault. It's not God's fault. It's always our fault that this is going on. And then, but God's patient. So he's giving us as a species time to figure it out and make the right choice, even though we keep making the wrong choice over and over again. God's just waiting patiently. But then eventually, after a few thousands and thousands and thousands of years, you know, God's like, okay, I've had enough. I told Abraham and talked to this person and that person. Time to send Jesus. Sends down Jesus. All right, Jesus, you know what you got to do. Go in there. Tell them about me. Tell them about you. Tell them what to do. Die. Come back. Tell them some more stuff, and then come back here. So Jesus goes down, gets born, does pretty much nothing until he's an adult, I guess, unless you read some of the Pentateuch where Jesus does stuff as a kid. Um, other than that, like there's one scene I guess as a kid in the Protestant Bible, but there's a lot more about Jesus as a kid in the Catholic version. Anyways, doesn't matter. Whatever. And then he's an adult and he's preaching and he's like, hey, John, baptize me. And John the Baptist baptizes him and says, oh, you're greater than I am. And then he goes around and he collects his disciples. He's like, come on, I'm going to make you fishermen of men. Come on, join my thing. And they all go around and, hey, we're going to knock down the stalls in the temple here. And we're going to tell the Pharisees that they're wrong about stuff. And they're like, hey, why don't you guys wash your hands before you eat? You don't need to worry about that. Jesus is like, look, that's all law. That's the law. I'm the fulfillment of the law. You don't need to do that anymore. Because I'm basically like, I'm God. I'm not telling you I'm God, but I'm telling you I'm God. And then he's like, hey, and then the disciples were stupid because they don't figure it out. Like, he does miracles right in front of them. Like, he heals the blind. He heals somebody that's deaf. He raises somebody back up from the dead. But his disciples are just idiotic morons who don't get that he's God for some reason. Like, who do you say I am? The Savior, we guess? I guess you're Lord? Like, it's hard. Like, he walks on water, feeds all these people food. He does all these things. Then he dies. And like, well, that sucks. And that would have been the end of the story. In fact, in one of the Gospels, that is the end of the story. He just dies. The end. And the gospel ends. And you're like, well, that was anticlimactic. And then more gospels come around. And they're like, wait, no, let me tell you the real story. Jesus didn't stay dead. He came back to life and he did this, that, and the other thing. And then he went back into heaven. And then another gospel comes along. It's like, hold on. No, actually, he did all of this stuff. And then one of the gospels like, forget that. Jesus was like super powered and did like a crazy shit ton of stuff that's freaking amazing, So one of the gospels is more boring than the other ones. And so that one I think is closer to what might have actually happened, maybe if Jesus actually existed. But I don't know. I wasn't there. And more importantly, no document could show that miracles happen anyways, because you would need video evidence of that or some sort of scientific test. You would need more than just writing. Although I suppose you could figure out some way to record it in a way that would show that it's true. I don't know. I can't, God could have figured it out. Jesus, you'd be like, hey, Jesus, what should I write down? Like, they never even ask him once, like, do you want this recorded? Like, how does any of this work? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So the reason C.S. Lewis says that God did that is so that the rest of us get plenty of more time after Jesus shows up to decide to join God or not. And then eventually, at some point, God's going to be like, okay, that's enough time. Time to end it. Come on in. Whee! Here we come. And then everybody's blown up and I don't know, whatever, Here's the problem with it. How can I choose God when I have a million gods to choose from? How am I, the pesky skeptic that I am, the jaded skeptic that I am, supposed to know which of the thousands of gods that used to exist and still exist to pick from? How do I know that? I wasn't there. I wasn't anywhere near Jerusalem when Jesus was around. I wasn't even born yet. I didn't exist except at a molecular level, and I was spread out amongst the cosmos or something as possible particles or some odd. I don't know. That's where I existed. So it took time for the world to get to know about Jesus. And today, it's like 31% of the world believes that even happened, and the rest believe other stuff. How am I supposed to know that that's the right one to believe? I can't pick a side without more data. I don't have the data. That's the problem, C.S. Lewis. That's the problem, Ryan from Me Apologetics, is I just don't have the data to make an informed choice on the matter. From my perspective, this God is one of many gods to choose from, and I have as much evidence of it as I do every other god, which is to say, none at all.
He wants to give us the chance of joining his side freely. I really like this. C.S. Lewis said this.
And that's the end. That's why I don't like shorts, because they end short. They're very quick. But yeah, so how do I, and then of course, if we're sticking with just the Judeo-Christian system, we're ignoring all these other choices of different gods that I could hypothetically choose. It's not really a choice, is it? Because God's saying, choose me or else. It's like, you choose me or you die. But it's not even necessarily you die, you actually get tortured forever and ever. That's not a choice. If I'm holding you at gunpoint and I say, look, I want your money, you're going to probably give me your money because you don't want to get shot. But a worse scenario is this. I somehow get a bunch of people together and I capture you, I kidnap you and your friends and family, and I tie you all up, chain you up in my super mega dungeon that nobody knows about and is soundproof. And I got you down there. Maybe you don't know that I've got your friends and family yet, but I go, okay, look, here's the deal. See, I've got this little like chopper machine that like the spinning saw blade thingy at the bottom, and you're suspended in the air somewhat. That you're very uncomfortable. It's very terrible, and you see the thing spin. Like one of those industrial machines that like chews up cars and stuff, right? And you're like right over it. You're like, and I'm like, okay, say there's no God, or I push the button and release you, and you get chopped into little bits and pieces. Go ahead, kill me. I don't care. And I'm like, all right. And then I reveal, dun dun dun. Here's one of your friends. They're hanging over. I'm like, okay, how about I kill them? And you're like, all right, well, I still don't want to say that there's no God. And then I reveal another friend and another friend. I reveal all your friends. And you're like, oh, no. And then I reveal your family. And you're like, oh, my goodness. Now, maybe you hold on and say, I'm not going to do it, even though you're going to kill those people. And go, oh, no, I'm not going to kill them. I'm just going to torture them a little bit. All you have to do is say there's no God, and I won't do it. And I start lowering them. Oh, their feet are going to go. Come on. Are you going to do it? Are you going to do what I want? Do you really have a choice but to comply? You kind of don't. Because the pressure that I'm exerting on you is an appeal to force, an appeal to fear. It is not logical in nature, it is emotional in nature. And so you don't really have a choice. But then, what if I make it even more interesting? Not only is there a ever-present threat for you and your friends and family of torture if you don't do what I want, but also I have a table, stacks of money on the table, legal currency, legit, and somehow you know that it's legit, but whatever. And deed to a mansion, and deeds to cars, and and medical supplies, and a cure for some disease that I had my lab figure out that the world needs desperately. And I'm like, look, all you gotta do is say that there is no God, and I let you all go harm without any more harm, and I let you have all this stuff here on this table. Now you have a bribe. So you have a bribe, which is the carrot, and then you have the stick of the choppy thing that's going to torture you and your friends and family unless you say there's no God. Is that a free choice? No, it's not. You're probably going to say whatever I want you to say so that I let you and your friends go and your family go, and you're going to grab that money and all the good stuff on the table and get the bleep out of there. And then you can just say sorry to God later, right? Because, I mean, yeah, you said it, but you didn't really mean it. But that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is it's not a free choice. If God is perfect, it would not commit logical fallacies. However, the Judeo-Christian God commits logical fallacies in that it is offering a bribe and or appealing to force, because if you don't believe it, you get bad place, but if you do believe it, you get good place. And that's the quote choice, which is a non-choice. So it's not a free choice. Unless, of course, that whole part of the Bible is wrong, and or my interpretation of it is wrong, and or maybe you have a different interpretation of it that allows it to not have those fallacies. Okay, then talked about chess and morality, and I actually like the analogy of chess and morality. I've actually used it before. So I'm going to play this and talk about it.
So I want to discuss morality a little bit more and what pieces are necessary for it to work the right way. And I'll give you an example. So when you're playing chess, you have two different people playing the same game, and they each have their own pieces. Your pieces have to be protected from attack from the other side, but they also have to be in the right position so that your strategy of offense or offense is effective. But there's another element. You have to be in agreement of playing the game. If you're playing a chess match and your opponent flips the board, it doesn't matter what your strategy is. It doesn't matter where your pieces are. The board has been flipped. All three of these elements have to be in alignment for the game to work.
Okay, so and that's it. And I actually like that video. I put a thumbs up. Yeah, I agree. I'd go further. We humans invented chess at some point in time, and we came up with the rules for it. And one of the rules was really weird. I didn't know about it, but there's a fox pass or whatever. I forget what it's called, but it's a thing I never heard of before. And I was like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing you did in chess. So, like, if you pass their pawn without taking it when you could have taken it, they can take your pawn. I was like, what? They can? Yeah, apparently they can. I don't know. It's the whole thing. So, yeah. Anyways, I saw this video about, like, the rarest chess moves. That was interesting, too. But anyways, okay. But we invented the rules. So if you and I sit down to chess, we already kind of know the rules because they're pretty much the same everywhere. And we could agree to different rules, but we still have to agree to the rules. So I view chess as ethics and the rules as morals. And as long as we are agreeing to play the game and we play the game honestly, then we'll get along just fine. And in the same way, our ethics are at the core subjective in nature because we humans came up with them, but objective because we now have a rule set to follow. The pieces have to move a certain way. The morals have to move a certain way to get to the goal of the ethics. In the case of chess, it's, to checkmate your opponent. But in the case of morality in life, it's really just to get along and cooperate better with each other. So I like the analogy of chess and ethics and morals. I think it's a good analogy, and I think that it shows that whether there's a God or not doesn't really matter as far as ethics go, because ethics can be made by humans and still be objective. Just in the sense that the rules of chess are also objective. And yes, it's subjective in another sense because you could agree to different rules for chess and whatnot. Yeah, that's it. En passant or whatever. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about, you nerd. All right. So yeah, I like that though. So he's got stuff that I probably wouldn't like.
Good morning.
No. Okay. Well, okay. So this stuff that's like 29 minutes long, that would take me like 5 days to analyze live for logical fallacy. So I'm not going to do it. I'm going to try to set up a talk with him at some point and try to just I don't know, do logic with him or something. I don't know that I could explain evolution to him. And he also kind of almost he sort of brought up like he didn't like that this guy told people to stay inside during COVID-19, and I'm like, yeah, well, okay. I mean, if they think that if they thought that was the best thing to do, then that's honest to tell people to stay inside. And I don't know if there's data that shows staying inside or did not staying inside mattered one way or the other. I have no idea. But if you think you have the papers that say one way or the other, great, produce those papers. But if you don't, then you don't know what the hell you're talking about. And you should be skeptical of your own conclusions and maybe keep them to yourself. Yeah, yeah. I say, hey, it's better to be safe than sorry. I stay it in. I stay in anyway, so it didn't really affect me. And I got the shot. Yeah, I got it twice. I got the one that you had to get twice. And then that was it. I'm done. I'm good, I guess they have new shots now. I don't know. Whatever. But if at any rate, you can be wrong in one area and still right in other areas. So I don't know. Well, we'll see what happens. So yeah, that's me looking at this guy briefly, kind of ish, even though I've been here for 46 minutes. What the hell? Imagine if I was doing a long look at this guy. Your face is subjective. How dare you? Okay, anyways, all right, that's all I got for now. Apparently, some people have not hit the bell icon for my channel. So if you haven't done that, hit the bell icon so that you see my non-live videos as well. All right, be skeptical, and lobsters exist. Meow.